All right, get ready, because today we are going deep on some really high-level English vocabulary.
Yeah.
20 words to be exact.
Wow.
That can really level up your communication.
Absolutely.
You know, I bet you're probably thinking, well, I already have a pretty good vocabulary.
Right.
You probably do.
Yeah.
But this deep dive
Okay.
isn't about,
Yeah.
learning those basic words, like an A. It's about unlocking these hidden gems, these power words that can help you express yourself with more nuance and clarity and impact.
For sure.
Now, our source material today
All right.
is this podcast boldly titled,
Okay.
If You Know These 20 Words, Your English is Top 1% Worldwide.
Wow.
Now,
okay.
Bit of a clickbaity title for sure.
I was going to say.
But
yeah.
The words themselves,
right?
They're actually pretty intriguing.
I agree.
And they were, I think, carefully chosen for their versatility and ability to convey complex ideas effectively.
And this isn't just about sounding smart.
Right.
It's about having the linguistic tools to articulate your thoughts.
Exactly.
With precision and power.
Exactly. So let's jump right into our first word, eloquent.
All right.
Now, I'm guessing you're familiar with the basic definition, being able to express yourself clearly and persuasively.
Right.
But I'm curious, when was the last time you used the word eloquent?
Oh.
Was it to describe a captivating speaker, or a beautifully written piece of prose, or maybe even a perfectly crafted argument?
What's fascinating about eloquent is that it goes beyond mere fluency.
Okay.
It suggests a certain artistry in the way you use language.
Okay.
It comes from the Latin word eloqui, which means to speak out. But eloquent implies speaking out in a way that resonates deeply with the listener.
Right.
Think of Martin Luther King Jr.'s I Have a Dream speech.
Yes.
It was eloquent not just because it was well written, but because it moved people to action.
So it's about impact as much as it is about style.
Absolutely.
And that's something to keep in mind, listener.
Yeah.
As we explore these words, we're not just adding definitions to your mental dictionary. We're giving you tools to connect with others on a deeper level.
Absolutely.
Now, speaking of intricately woven ideas, our next word is intricate itself.
Okay.
Meaning, of course, very detailed and complex.
Right.
You've probably used this to describe art, architecture, maybe even a particularly challenging puzzle. But I sometimes hesitate to use intricate because it can sound a bit, well, pretentious.
Sure.
What are your thoughts?
I think the key with intricate is to use it when the complexity is also beautiful or impressive.
Oh, okay.
Think of a spider web glistening with dew in the morning sun that's intricate.
Okay.
Or a watch mechanism with hundreds of tiny, perfectly fitted parts that's intricate too.
I see your point. It's not just about being complicated for the sake of being complicated.
Exactly.
It's about a level of detail that makes you want to lean in and really examine it.
Yeah.
Now, shifting gears a bit, let's talk about a word that's essential for navigating life's inevitable ups and downs.
Sure.
Resilient.
And this word is so much more than just bouncing back.
Oh, yeah.
Resilient suggests an adaptability.
Okay.
A strength that comes from being able to bend without breaking.
I like that.
Think of a bamboo forest swaying in the wind.
Yeah.
It yields to the pressure, but doesn't snap.
That's a great image.
Yeah.
And it makes me think about how resilience isn't just a personality trait.
Right.
It's something you can cultivate.
Absolutely.
Both in your personal and professional life.
For sure.
Speaking of which, let's move on to a word that's crucial for understanding ourselves and others.
Okay.
Perception.
Perception is the lens through which we see the world.
Yeah.
And it's inherently subjective.
Okay.
Two people can witness the same event and walk away with completely different interpretations. Understanding this is key to effective communication and building strong relationships.
Absolutely. It's a good reminder to always consider other perspectives.
Right.
Especially in today's world where it's so easy to get stuck in our own echo chambers.
For sure.
But sometimes, even with the best intentions, things can get lost in translation.
Yeah.
And that brings us to our next word.
Okay.
Ambiguous.
Interesting.
I'm curious, listener, have you ever received instructions that were so ambiguous they left you scratching your head?
Oh, yeah.
Or maybe you've encountered a piece of writing so open to interpretation that it sparked a heated debate among your friends.
Right.
Ambiguity can be frustrating, for sure, but it can also be incredibly powerful, particularly in the realms of art and literature.
Think about a poem that uses metaphors and symbolism to evoke multiple layers of meaning.
Okay.
Or an abstract painting that allows each viewer to bring their own interpretations to the canvas.
Wow.
Ambiguity, when wielded intentionally, can invite deeper reflection and engagement.
That's a great point. It's all about context.
Exactly.
And speaking of intentionally using language to achieve a specific goal, our next word is endeavor.
Okay.
Now, we can simply use words like attempt or effort.
Right.
But endeavor carries a certain weight, doesn't it?
It certainly does.
Yeah.
Endeavor implies a significant, often long-term undertaking that requires dedication and perseverance.
Wow.
It suggests something grander, more purposeful. Think of scientific endeavors to map the human genome.
Right.
Or artistic endeavors to create a masterpiece.
Yeah.
It evokes a sense of scale and ambition that sets it apart from a simple attempt.
So, listener, consider this.
Okay.
When was the last time you embarked on a true endeavor? What project or goal demanded that level of commitment and dedication from you?
Right.
What's fascinating about language is that sometimes even the most complex endeavors can be sparked by the simplest of chances.
Oh, for sure.
And that brings us to our next word.
Okay.
A word that's all about those delightful surprises life throws our way. Serendipity.
I love that word.
I'm a firm believer that everyone has at least one good serendipity story.
Absolutely.
What about you?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, mine led to a career-defining collaboration.
Oh, wow.
I was at a conference utterly lost in thought when I quite literally bumped into someone.
What?
Turned out they were a leading expert in a field I was researching.
No way.
We ended up having an impromptu brainstorming session right there in the hallway.
Wow.
And it blossomed into a fantastic partnership.
That's amazing.
Pure serendipity.
I love that story. It reminds us that sometimes the most unexpected encounters can lead to the most amazing opportunities.
Absolutely.
And speaking of doing good, our next word is altruistic.
Okay.
Now, altruism is often defined as selfless concern for the well-being of others. But do you think true altruism exists? Or is there always some element of self-interest involved?
That's a debate philosophers have been grappling with for centuries.
Oh, wow.
But regardless of the motivation, altruistic actions have a positive impact on the world.
Yeah.
It's about prioritizing the needs of others, even if it comes at a personal cost.
Okay.
Think of volunteers who dedicate their time to helping those less fortunate, or individuals who risk their own safety to rescue others in danger.
Right.
Their actions embody the spirit of altruism.
Absolutely. And whether or not it's purely selfless, the world definitely needs more of it.
I agree.
Now, shifting gears again, let's talk about a word that emphasizes precision and attention to detail.
All right.
Meticulous.
Okay.
It often brings to mind skilled artisans, those individuals who pour their heart and soul into perfecting their craft.
Right.
I'm thinking of watchmakers, calligraphers, surgeons, professions where even the smallest detail can make a huge difference.
Meticulous comes from the Latin meticulosus, meaning fearful.
Oh.
And while we don't usually associate meticulousness with fear, there's a certain level of care and precision involved that suggests a deep respect for the task at hand. It's not just about being careful.
Oh.
It's about striving for excellence in every detail.
And that brings us to our final word for this part of our deep dive.
Okay.
Persuasive.
All right.
You're likely familiar with the concept, being able to convince others to agree with your point of view.
Right.
But think about it, listener. What truly makes someone persuasive? Is it charisma, logic, passion, or a combination of all three?
Persuasion is a delicate dance between logic and emotion.
Interesting.
It's about crafting compelling arguments, understanding your audience, and appealing to both their hearts and minds.
Right.
Think of successful negotiators, charismatic leaders, or even that friend who always seems to get you to try new things.
Right.
They all understand the art of persuasion.
So we've covered a lot of ground, from eloquent speakers to meticulous craftspeople, from the power of perception to the unexpected delights of serendipity.
Absolutely.
And this is just the beginning.
That's right.
We have 10 more equally fascinating words to explore.
I can't wait.
But before we dive into those, take a moment, listener, to reflect on these first 10.
Yeah.
Which ones resonate most with you? And how might you start incorporating them into your own vocabulary?
Stay tuned as we continue our deep dive into the top 1% of English vocabulary.
Welcome back. Ready for 10 more words that'll boost your English game?
Yeah, I think these next few words really get at the heart of how we understand the world and our place in it.
Ooh, I like where this is going.
Yeah.
Let's start with ephemeral.
Okay.
It's one of those words that sounds beautiful just to say, isn't it?
It really does. And that's fitting considering it describes things that are fleeting, temporary,
right,
but often incredibly beautiful, like a sunset, a blooming flower, or even a perfect moment of connection with another person.
It makes you want to savor those moments even more,
right,
knowing they won't last forever.
Absolutely.
Listener, what's something ephemeral that you truly cherish? Maybe it's the scent of rain on dry pavement.
Oh, yeah.
Or the sound of laughter echoing through a room.
Speaking of cherishing things, a word that encourages us to be truly present is cognizant.
Okay.
Now, you might be thinking, isn't that just a fancy way of saying aware?
Right.
And you're right, in a way.
Okay.
But there's a subtle difference.
I get that cognizant feels more active, more deliberate. Like I'm not just aware of something, I'm actively acknowledging it and its implications.
Precisely. It suggests a deeper level of understanding and responsibility.
Okay.
You might be aware of a problem, but are you truly cognizant of its root causes and potential solutions?
Right.
That's where the real power lies.
It's about moving from passive observation to active engagement.
Yeah.
And, that makes me think about how crucial it is to be cognizant of other people's perspectives.
Absolutely.
Especially if those perspectives are different from our own.
Of course.
Which naturally leads us to our next word.
Okay.
Empathy. You hear this word everywhere these days, and for good reason.
Right.
It's at the core of building meaningful relationships, both personal and professional. For sure. But it's also one of those words that's easier said than done.
It really is. True empathy requires us to step outside of our own experiences and try to see the world through another person's eyes.
Right.
It's about listening deeply, understanding their emotions, and responding with compassion. It's not about agreeing with them necessarily, but about acknowledging their feelings and validating their experiences.
It's about fostering connection in a world that often feels increasingly divided.
Absolutely.
And sometimes that means setting aside our ideals and focusing on what's actually achievable in the here and now.
Yeah.
Which brings us to a word that I personally find incredibly useful.
Okay.
Pragmatic. I'm a bit of a dreamer by nature, so pragmatic helps ground me in reality.
Sure, it's a valuable tool for anyone who wants to get things done.
Right.
A pragmatic approach focuses on what's feasible and effective, even if it's not the most glamorous or idealistic solution. It's about adapting to circumstances and making decisions based on logic and practicality, rather than getting bogged down in wishful thinking.
Sometimes, though, even the most pragmatic approach can't fully solve a problem.
Right.
And that's when we find ourselves facing a conundrum.
Okay.
A tricky situation with no easy answers. Listener, what's a conundrum you're wrestling with right now? Maybe it's a career decision, a relationship dilemma, or even just figuring out what to have for dinner.
Conundrums require us to think critically.
Okay.
Consider different perspectives and weigh the potential consequences of each choice.
Right.
There's no one-size-fits-all solution.
Right.
It's about embracing the complexity of the situation and finding a path forward that feels right for you.
And sometimes the best way to approach a conundrum is with a spirit of kindness and generosity.
Oh, absolutely.
Which brings us to our next word, benevolent. It's a word that embodies compassion and goodwill towards others.
Right.
It makes me think of those individuals who dedicate their lives to making the world a better place.
Benevolent implies a genuine desire to do good, to help others without expecting anything in return.
Okay.
It's a powerful force for positive change in the world.
It truly is.
Yeah.
Now let's lighten things up a bit with a word that celebrates our unique quirks and personalities.
Right.
Idiosyncrasy. I find it endlessly fascinating how each of us has these little things that make us, well, us.
Absolutely. It could be a particular way of speaking.
Yeah.
A quirky habit. An unusual hobby, anything that sets you apart from the crowd.
Right.
And the beauty of idiosyncrasies is that they often become endearing to those around us.
They add flavor and spice to life, wouldn't you say?
They really do.
And sometimes those idiosyncrasies lead us to do things that others might consider bold, even daring.
Sure.
Which brings us to our next word.
Okay.
Audacious.
Interesting.
Now there's a fine line between being audacious and being reckless.
Right.
Audacious implies a calculated risk-taking, a willingness to push boundaries and challenge conventions.
Yeah.
It's about having the courage to pursue ambitious goals, even in the face of doubt or opposition.
It's about that spark of daring that drives innovation and progress.
Right. Think of entrepreneurs who launch groundbreaking startups, artists who create unconventional masterpieces, or explorers who venture into uncharted territories.
Speaking of uncharted territories, let's talk about a word that's become increasingly relevant in our digital age.
Okay.
Ubiquitous. It means being present everywhere, and it's hard to think of a better word to describe the pervasiveness of technology in our lives.
Right. Smartphones, social media, online shopping.
Yeah.
They've become so integrated into our daily routines that it's almost hard to imagine life without them.
Absolutely.
Ubiquitous reminds us of how rapidly the world is changing.
Right.
And how important it is to adapt to these ever-evolving landscapes.
And in a world where things are constantly changing, where we're bombarded with information from all sides, it's more important than ever to approach challenges with a sense of grace and understanding.
Yeah.
Which brings us to our final word for this segment.
Okay.
Magnanimous.
Magnanimous.
Yeah.
It's a word that evokes a sense of nobility and generosity of spirit.
It is.
It's about rising above pettiness and resentment, even when you have every right to feel those things. Magnanimous often applies to situations where someone has won a victory, whether it's in a competition, a debate, or even just a personal disagreement. Instead of gloating or belittling their opponent, a magnanimous person acknowledges their worth and treats them with respect.
Right.
Even admiration.
It's about taking the high road even when it's tempting to do otherwise.
Right. And, that's a quality I think we could all strive for, regardless of our circumstances. So we've explored 10 more powerful words, each offering a unique perspective on how we communicate, interact with the world, and navigate the complexities of human experience. I'm curious, listener, which of these words sparked a new insight for you? What resonated most deeply with your own experiences and aspirations?
We'll be back shortly to wrap things up and leave you with some final thoughts to ponder.
We've journeyed through 20 words, listener, each carefully chosen for its power and nuance.
Yeah.
But here's the thing.
Okay.
Words are only as potent as our ability to use them.
Right.
It's like having a toolbox full of shiny new gadgets. They're useless if you never actually build anything.
Exactly. This deep dive was about giving you those tools, those linguistic levers to elevate your communication.
Yeah.
But it's up to you to put them to work.
Right.
Imagine trying to explain a complex idea to a colleague or craft a compelling argument in a meeting.
Okay.
Suddenly, these words aren't just vocabulary. They're your secret weapons.
I love that analogy.
Yeah.
So no more passive listening, right?
Nope.
We're challenging you to actively incorporate these words into your daily life.
Absolutely.
Don't be afraid to experiment, to play around with them in different contexts.
Yeah, just try them out.
Notice how others use them. Maybe you'll pick up a new trick or two.
Right.
And if you stumble, don't sweat it.
Yeah, it's all part of the process.
Even the most eloquent speakers had to start somewhere.
Exactly.
Remember, language is a living thing. It's constantly evolving. The more you engage with it, the more fluent and confident you'll become.
For sure.
Speaking of confidence, think back to that podcast title that kicked off our deep dive.
Okay.
Top 1% worldwide.
Oh, yeah.
Now, rankings are always subjective.
Right.
But the underlying message is powerful.
I agree.
Mastering language, really owning your communication.
Yeah.
That's what sets you apart.
It's about more than just sounding intelligent. It's about connecting with others on a deeper level, understanding the nuances of human thought and emotion, and expressing yourself with clarity and precision.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I'm going to leave you with a final thought.
Okay.
If these 20 words can elevate your English to the top 1%,
right.
Imagine the possibilities that open up when you continue to explore, to learn to push the boundaries of your vocabulary.
Absolutely.
What other linguistic adventures await? What hidden gems are still waiting to be discovered in the vast and ever-evolving landscape of language?
Who knows?
Keep seeking them out. Keep playing with words and never stop being curious. Thanks for joining us on this journey.